Welcome to another episode of Blended Views Unfiltered, where we always discuss life, love, and business. This is DeAndre.
This is Nick.
And today we have the distinct pleasure of having my family, some of my loved ones on the show. This is Danielle. And you want to go by William. I call him Uncle Lucky. I was about to call him Uncle Lucky. William and Danielle.
He gonna still say the nickname.
Oh, it's fine.
So as we all know, we are in the month of February, and it is, of course, Black History Month, but it's also a month in which we come together and not everybody celebrate love, but a lot of people celebrate love. But I figured, why not kick off the month with having a married couple, a successful married couple of...
Hold on now. Me and my wife been on this podcast before.
Well, yeah, y'all don't count this time.
Well, yeah,
y'all do count. Y'all do
we
count.
semi-successful. We don't know yet.
We got some
gonna see.
We got some seasoned.
You think it might
We
be
got some
just an
vets.
introduction?
We're gonna time will tell.
Okay.
It's like,
We got some vets in the game.
Who's
You
the
heard me?
hype, though?
I'm excited about this interview.
No, we always talk about a lot of relationship issues and things. We talk about marriages, and of course, we do have Nick, who is the only married man on the podcast.
Happily married.
So we always talk about different subjects, and we have yet, in our year plus existence, we have yet to have like a tenured relationship couple on the show. So today is our first time having that. So say hi to the people.
Hello.
Hello.
It's William Peace, alias Lucky, born in Betty's youngest son.
Nice.
I said hello.
Well, tell the people who you are.
Danielle Peace.
So give the people a little insight, or just tell us a little bit about yourself, each one of you guys.
Okay, my name is Danielle Peace. I am the youngest child of Rudolph Lott Sr. and Lily Lott. I have been a lifelong resident of the Ohio area, not necessarily Youngstown, but Ohio. Currently, I am a supervisor in customer service for a health insurance company, and I've had the pleasure of being married to this gentleman for 26 years, 27 this month, actually.
Nice. Right on time.
All right, you know.
I'm William Peace. I work at Home Goods Distribution Center. I'm accuracy controlled. And I've been in ministry for over 30 years. And I've had the pleasure of saying yes to this woman when she asked me to marry her. No, I seen her, and I had the pleasure of actually the opportunity to watch her as she watched me. And I know modern day people meet over the internet and dating sites, but I met her at church. Sounds like a cliche, or maybe it sounds like coming to America. There's some good girls at church, and even the thing we're going to tonight. But she stood out because she was very much a lady, and I've been the pleasure of being a father, a grandfather, and a great-grandfather. That is my greatest delight, being a dad.
Nice.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
I instantly feel a connection. I met my wife in church. Nothing cliche about it. Good women in church.
Yeah.
Like I said, time will tell. It's like, let me stop saying it. My wife watched these episodes.
Yeah.
Well, that's all right. I kind of listened to you. You said you were happily married.
Happily.
Because every now and then it's really unhappy.
Oh,
It
so
is
it's
just commitment that takes you where you need to go. And even before commitment, it's character and a relationship with God. So mostly a lot of that will flow out of me. And so my comments might not be for everybody. It might be for that person that is first pursuing a relationship with Christ. And that is the difference maker. It is He and the Holy Ghost that makes things work because
Yes, sir.
I'm not smart enough, bright enough, and you show me a man that understands women and he writes a book, he's going to be a billionaire.
You're right.
But
Far and in between.
it is that commitment with him first that makes me be able to be a husband and to live within my marriage sacrificially. Without the sacrifice, you'll never make it. And I would say the 5th and 6th chapter of Ephesians really is a difference maker. In the 5th chapter, it defines roles. And it also says you can't do it without the representation of Christ. It says, wife, love your husband as Christ. Husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church. And it says, wife, respect. And you don't hear this even in the marriage while a preacher's saying it. It actually says obey in King James. But a lot of people take offense in modern day feminism, not understanding that the word calls her a helper. And guess who's called the helper? The Holy Ghost.
Talking spicy now.
And so with that in mind, it's not an offense to be a helper.
Yeah.
It's not an offense because that is it's not just apostolic, it's apologetic. One of the most apologetic books talking about marriage and what the roles are. And so the chapter after that tells you about how to withstand in marriage. It talks about putting on the full armor of God and withstanding the wiles of the devil, because guess what? When you're in marriage, you're at war because the devil don't like your unity. The devil doesn't like you communicating. That's one of the biggest overused. Oh, we left each other because we couldn't communicate. Well, you don't practice communication. Mm-hmm. And that's why you have problems communicating, because most of your conversation is survival. Most of your talk that you talk with each other is you don't mean to have an argument, or you mean well, and what you said was not to offend, it was actually to help, but sometimes what you said gonna offend the other party. And so what you're saying, you just want to survive without an argument. Mm-hmm. But that's an impossibility because everything's an argument.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how is it that two individuals, two different upbringings, manage to make it almost 27 years together under the same roof without straying away? Because it's uncommon these days. And I'm not mean like cheating. I mean like how was it that two individuals came together and became one? Because it seems as though what we lack these days is that hard work that goes into relationships, and we don't understand the meaning of two becomes one in totality. So how is your journey, both of your journeys, coming into one? Good, bad, and ugly.
Well, I mean, you said something important when you mentioned the word work, because that's what it takes, work. I think a lot of times people become consumed with the idea of marriage, the wedding, this huge wedding, and, the dress, and, that becomes the focal point. But I like to call it a Cinderella mentality, because, once you become one, you're constantly working to be one. So as far as our journey, it didn't come without a price. And it takes waking up every day saying yes. So not just I do on the wedding day, but every day saying, yes, I can do this again. Today I choose to say yes to my mate. For better, for worse, it's just not words, because you will experience trauma. We've experienced a whole plethora of things over this 26-year process. And I mean, it including loss of children. I became an instant step parent. And when I got married, I was 27 years old. And I felt that I was mature for my age and could take on the responsibility. But again, it just took some hard work.
I think being a healthy individual, because and what I mean by healthy, it's not just your body. Spiritually, first of all, dictates everything, but even in your mindset. No one is actually prepared for what marriage entails, because each person comes with a different skill set. And sometimes you don't respect the skill set of the other person. And sometimes the biggest problem, again, is communication, because men don't talk the same way as women. Mm-hmm. And when you have a wife that doesn't understand that, then it's going to be problematic for a male, because we don't talk the same way. I'll give you an example. Just say there's some dishes in the sink, and woman says, man, I wish somebody would wash those dishes. Well, husband's going to take it as a suggestion. You asked me, you suggested it, I could say no. But if another woman would take it as, oh, you want me to wash the dishes. And so they go on and wash the dishes. We just communicate in a different fashion. And there's some practices you should have that makes the difference. But what happens in marriages, people really are ignorant of it. If somebody don't tell you it's work, then they lying to you. Or we've never had an argument, and they quote a scripture. Oh, don't go to bed with the sun, and that's not true. So, cause sometimes you might go to bed that I ain't talking to you, and that I want you to know that. I want you to know that I'm angry with you.
Oh yes.
and so, but what that scripture means is that don't go to bed without the practice of that we're going to get to a remedy. Because sometimes you can't talk. And sometimes you got to be careful of your nonverbals and what they have said to your mate. And sometimes, like he said about becoming one, you can't do that without purpose in God, and God gives you purpose. And what your purpose is gives him glory. And so, again, it has to become sacrificial. You have to realize, man, in the growth process, I'm a sinner. I'm going to do what sinners do. And if you don't let the Holy Ghost come in, you're going to want your way. And the source of sin is wrongdoing. The source of sin, you see it from the beginning of the Bible. The man throws the woman under the bus, and the woman threw the lifestyle under the bus. What she should have had rule over, she allowed something else to influence. And so that's how we became one, is what would influence us. And it wasn't just it was many times hitting bottom, and there was no place but up.
Yeah.
It was being around and pursuing couples that were flawed, and try to glean, man, how did you get through that? How did you get through him cheating on you with a tackhead woman over there that looked twice as bad, and he insulted you as that, but
I like that tackhead.
I'm faithful because of what God has done for me, but I'm more faithful because of the flaws. My wife didn't like something I said when we got married, because she didn't understand my heart.
What'd you say?
And I said to her, I says, God didn't give me what I wanted. He gave me what I needed. And that's what my wife was. She came in, became the mother of my children. They call her mom. They pursue her as mom. That was not her. It was God. And that's what I mean about a grace. My wife had a certain grace for me. And I got a certain grace for her. Joe Smo can't put up with what I can put up with. Or same way with her, you know. And plus, it's a certain level of wisdom you that God gives you. And if you lack it, you can ask him for it. But most of the flaws give you wisdom. Most of the times you hit bottom and there's no place but up really gives you an answer to how to pursue, overtake, and recover all.
Sometimes there's no better place than the rock bottom.
My question is that even with you guys being married almost 27 years, we're talking decades as far as 1 to almost 3 decades of being together, but age differences too. There's a lot of things that you go through in your 20s, a lot of things you go in your 30s and your 40s, and different trials and tribulations that you can have. What would you say was like your biggest tribulation in being together when you were in your 20s, your 30s, 40s, and I don't know how old you guys are. So because I know when I listened to Tyler Perry had said something one time, and he was saying by the time you get to your 40s and 50s, you're dealing with a whole different set of cases because you're dealing with your mom and dad possibly dying, and it's just a whole different feel, midlife crisis, and different things like that. So, what are some of the tribulation that you actually had, and how did you get through them? I think ours started very early, only because, as I stated, I married a man with children, and I didn't have biological children, and we tried and tried and tried.
Can I ask how many children, if you don't mind?
I'm sorry?
How many children?
2. Okay. 2. But
we lost
biological children, 0. So we lost, and I just feel like I was in my 20s, late 20s, and, for a woman, that is what you pray for. That's what you expect in marriage, is to become pregnant and to give your husband children. And so, my husband's family is huge, and every function is just, everybody has children. So here I come. Yes, I have my children. I say stepchildren, but they're my children. But no one who looks like me, or no one who has my personality, or where do I fit in this whole family, because I don't have an offspring. But within all of that, there's always that reassurance of a spouse who's constantly reinforcing their love for you. And, just children are a blessing, of course, but at the same time, that's not the totality of being married. And I was really blessed with my 2 children, my bonus children, because they love me like a mother. The void, or that I would normally, or that a woman would feel by not having children, that void was filled because they just genuinely loved me. And that just came from relationship and just kind of growing together and learning each other. And, I didn't feel like I was trying to be a mother to them. I just really wanted their respect, me being an adult. But if that came, I was open to it, and I was just blessed that it did. So that was just one hurdle early on, that, if you go through infertility, if you go through, I went through surgery. I mean, and I'm saying it was like a long period of time that I went through treatment and just different things. And it just came to a point where I had to say, okay, this is enough, because some couples might pursue it and it might say it doesn't matter what it costs. We're going to continue down this road, so forth and so on. But for me, I just came to a point of where I felt like I was satisfied with the direction that our marriage was going in, our life was going in, and just the pressure of trying to get pregnant. I didn't want that to be a sore spot for us, or even neglect to my bonus children either, So I would say that the fact that we communicated prayer, having a spiritual walk, a personal relationship with Christ, of course, is something that helped. And then having other couples that you do glean from, because transparency is important. And I think many times you see couples and you think, I want what they have, but you don't know what it took to get to that level or to that point. So having, I'm sorry?
You said that one more time for the people in the back.
But having, mentors and other strong people in your life that pour into you, speak into your life, I think is key, because, women are emotional creatures, emotional beings. And sometimes you can live in your emotions, and sometimes that can be something that'll cause trouble.
It'll cause trouble for a man too, because what people don't understand, they says, oh, women are more emotional than men, but what they take out of it, that anger is an emotion, and more men are angry, and it's not always for a reason. It's because of, like she said about relational. My wife said some very important things that most couples are not ready for. First of all, she said the word respect. I believe respect is almost more important than love. And what I mean by that, if it's not the agape love, that sacrificial love that God is talking about, Eros is very selfish. And that's what we find more common in the culture today, sex. Everything's about sex. Everybody thinks about doing it. TikTok or whatever that is the current thing, the music, demonic Beyonce songs, whatever. But anyway, but all of it is.
That's gonna get you canceled now.
Well, I'm on here and anything goes.
I'm not saying I disagree with you,
but and I'm big enough to be okay if somebody mad at me, even in the audience of this podcast, because guess what?
Beehive is strong.
I really don't care. But anyway,
be careful.
Getting back to that, an important thing about respect. Respect to me is almost more important than love, because we can't really know love. We don't even know how to define it. You get married, and sometimes you only could qualify it by like, man, I wouldn't do this if I wasn't in love. But respect is important, because the love goes in and out like the tide, man. Today I love him. No, I don't. He got on my nerves.
Man, you're right.
And I really am committed to you, but you getting on my last. I wish you'd shut up sometime, or whatever. And these are real conversations that you have.
She don't listen past this point.
And so respect is a very, very important.
He talking good.
Very important element to any relationship, because. And I want to get into something else that what I said young people are not prepared for. Because say someone steps on your toes.
Yes, sir.
And when they step on they do. And they did it like for a year now, stepping on your toes. But just anybody. It could be who you marry. It could be a friend. But in marriage, it's much more easier to because you're in and out 365, 24 hours. And so you're not always cognizant that you stepped all over the toes. But the problem is not the person that stepped on the toes. The problem is the person that allowed it. And so that person is going to come just a human. Man, I've been stepping on your toes. You never said nothing. And so I became the best toe stomper there was, And so you got to push them off. And it doesn't take that you lost love. It just now I know a boundary that I can't touch. You know, but the one thing that I really want to say that I did not understand what my wife said, because when we lost, I've never seen someone in that enormous amount of pain. And what I'm saying, I wasn't insensitive because we became one, as DeAndre said. So I noticed it, and it bothered me to no end. And like privately, there were tears first for my wife. But then experientially, there became some inward things because of the difference of how society and culture responds to a man. I might have had kids, but these were new kids. And everybody would come up to me and ask me how my wife was doing. But no one asked me how I was doing. No one. No one asked me in that every one of my children are different. They're all a quarter, but this one's a full quarter and this one is 2 dimes and a nickel. And so they need different things, have different skill sets. And so what I was missing, because one of them was a girl, Mackenzie, I wasn't going to go to a daddy dance. I wasn't going to go to a lot of her firsts. One of ours was a son. I wasn't going to be able to stick my chest out when I went to church and said, man, he ran 5 touchdowns last night, man. He better than Michael Jordan, man. He going to be the next Supreme Court justice. And no one asked me. Now, getting back to something that I think people are not prepared for in marriage is what my wife alluded to, is suffering. No one sees the value of the pain you go through, or no one thinks that they're going to go through suffering in marriage. And a lot of people exit marriage because of suffering. And you're going to go through some suffering, and it's going to come out with character. It's going to come out with shaping. It's going to be like you going to the potter's house, man, and he rubbing you and smashing on you and molding you, because there's many nights I went to bed in my devotion time saying, Lord, make me a good husband, because I'm not. Or change the way I feel, because like what my wife was saying, you cannot trust emotions. Emotions have no authority. Emotions will take you to a place where you never should have went. And that's why communication be off. Because I remember when my wife was sick, and I had to put her family out of her room. And her sisters were mad at me because they says, we're going to wash her up. I says, no, you ain't. I'm going to do that. And they were upset with me. So you got to understand, when you marry somebody, you know, it sounds good. Oh, we don't need anybody else. It's just me and you, babe. No, you marry him, you marrying that family. So you have to be a real woman or a real man and put people in their place and saying, these are divine places that you cannot touch. If you got something to say that's out of pocket, then you keep it to yourself. Or if you got to understand that everybody's not your counsel. Even if they're your sister, your brother, or whatever, everybody's not your counsel. So there's people that you can't listen to. There's people that are not praying for your marriage.
Take some notes here.
Speaking in your marriage. And even when you are at odds with each other, this is the most important factor you got to understand, the God factor, that the same God looking out for you is looking out for them. And you be all angry and if they would do this, if they would do that, then we would be a lot farther. Then God will come in and say, but I ain't dealing with her. I ain't dealing with him. I'm dealing with you, man. And I'm telling you, man, I'm after your heart. And so what is problematic, if you don't understand suffering, is that you can't compartmentalize your life. It's got to be wholly submitted to God, because you don't know what the next turn is. You don't know when you're being good and when you're bad, or you don't know the season you're in when you're the one that's carrying the other person and they just ain't got it, or they're carrying you. That's even worse, when you don't know that they're carrying you because you're a pompous ass.
One more thing that I wanted to say is, when you talk about the two becoming one, these are the types of things that two becoming one. That's how it's occurring through ups and downs, because you learn, I got you, you got me, God got us. So that's the two becoming one, because again, there's going to be some wins, there's going to be some losses, and even through the loss, and I don't want to keep referring to that, but, we experienced financial hardships because I wasn't working. I couldn't work. One pregnancy, I was on bed rest. So, there again, this is early in marriage. This is within the first 5 to 7 years. So everybody says, oh, that's the critical point, or those are the critical years. And they are, but all years are critical, and how you handle yourself and how you handle your marriage. But, moving and finances, those are like really huge arguments. Absolutely, So when you're going through these things, I mean, you really have to remember that your partner is going through it with you. You're not, if I'm eating beans and cornbread, we're eating beans and cornbread. You're not the only one. So you can't make it a source of, I'm going through this by myself. No, we're going through it together. I'm affected by what's happening here. So
that was one of my lines. So that's what happens when you're together.
You use each other's material.
Because sometimes, like I said about
It's
carrying
your
each other,
lines.
my wife is 8 years younger than me. So there was a
good age there.
So there was a different response to some parts of life. But guess what? It worked in the other part too. Because you don't know what you don't know. And so when that person comes in your life, you can't be a know-it-all. But what she was saying about it, I think one of the important things that we got to, and we're still working on it, is the fact that when the other is in pain, because just recently we've had it at a different age. I had a back injury. It was off of work just recently. Even sitting here is an issue for me now. And since August, money wasn't coming in. But guess what? God paid every bill. Mortgage got paid and everything. But it wasn't a sensible time because early in our marriage, when I had issues with employment, I learned something. My wife came to me and she said, "Hey, man, what you gonna do about this?" And when we were younger, I might have argued. But because some seasoning, don't ever believe, you hear this, but it's a false statement that time heals all wounds. No, don't, because you could be a dumb fool at 20 and be a dumb fool at 40. So it don't. And what I've understood, and God had gave me a message to preach, but when I understood grace to be, because we've always been taught, y'all probably could say it with me. What is the definition of grace? Unmerited favor. What the heck does that mean?
I don't know. That's the first time I heard of that.
Well, that's what you learn in Sunday school. So it's an old school one. But anyway, what I want to say about that is something that's been mentioned to all of it, is that what the Lord had defined it to me was grace was transition. Because if grace comes in your life, if salvation comes in your life, if Jesus comes in your life, you're going to have to be prepared to transition. You can't do old things and still think you're going to manage anything. I can't do old things. My wife is not the same woman I married, man. My wife is so sophisticated now, I don't know what to do. It's almost like I hear Oprah Winfrey's theme song. I'm every woman. It's all in me. I have to keep up with that, and I have to be interested in that. I can't be just interested in my own life.
Yeah.
I have to be interested in something, and I have to, again, fulfill that role, because there's sometimes God has given me something to say that we need to go in this direction, and that just doesn't happen overnight. Matter of fact, sometimes it only happens in prayer, and that's where some of us men mess up. that we again, I said one of the most important things. I wish that we had more counseling in that regard, because the shield of faith, it says it quenches all fiery darts. And sometimes, man, the fiery darts come in, but you ain't got your armor on. So guess what? It be burning, man. Y'all be arguing. Y'all be at it. Y'all be at each other. But you had the power to quench it, to stop it, to understand that there is an enemy that is powerful. Because, you know, in Ephesians, it talks about in high places, demons in high places. Now, what becomes problematic is when that demon's in you. And so that's sometimes what you don't see. That sometimes it's presenting itself. And I just want to say that, again, in preparation of marriage, is that the preparation is that Bible, man, the Word of God is, it says it's sanctified. Jesus sanctified the word of truth. And sometimes the truth is, you're not so wonderful. You're not Mr. Wonderful. Or, you know, the truth of why I would never step out on my marriage, like what was asked about this oneness, is two things. I know God loves me, but I also know my wife loves me. And I would never break her heart like that. And the second part of that is my children. To think that I have grown children that have their own marriages, and they look at what we do. We pray, we love each other, we argue with each other, and they always see that there's a remedy. But I would never want my children to come to me and say, man, everything you said was a lie. And so that's the example that I am in my home. And what I find, DeAndre, what I find, my brother, is that you got to have big shoulders, because sometimes you was the only person in the house nobody liked. Or the times you had to say no to your children or your wife don't make you very popular.
Yes.
Not at all.
But you have to do it anyway, because you love them, and some of it is sacrificial. If you have a kid and you give him everything, make him seem entitled, I think I sent DeAndre this thing about, no, my wife said it to me, about, man, when we was young, man, McDonald's was a big thing. If our parents pulled into McDonald's, man, we was ready. Now your kids is like, where's the sushi? Where's the crab bake? Why ain't we going to the yeah, they have a whole different approach to entitlement today. Or give me them $130, $200 Jordans. I mean, we was like, wow, you know, you got a pair of Converse, you know, which was $13, you know.
Forever last.
And so I'm just saying, I worked at Youngstown Rand Early College, and I came in there with a fixed mindset, because I was in ministry, and I know what God wants and everything. And so what happened real quickly when I engaged with those kids is that I had to change from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And so in marriage, you have to have a growth mindset, that last week's blessings, last week's understanding, last week is not enough. You have to always be pursuing, knowing about the other person, because they have changed. As a matter of fact, the biggest part, what I find we struggle with, is when your spouse is expressing humility and you overlook it, or you overlook their pain like it's nothing. That really is where the Lord really pierced my heart, you know, to never overlook her strengths. And that's what becomes problematic, is that you start attacking each other in the weaknesses, and forget last week, the very thing you're mad at, they did it 5 times, but you never noticed it, or you never celebrated it, or whatever, but you really put your finger and poked at when they failed. Now I've never known anybody Please cuss me out, and I'm gonna be Mr. Do Right. Oh, I needed that cussing out. I needed you to tell me I was nobody. Go to hell and tell me why, how, and when to get there.
I know the stairway.
Man, you're right.
And so I think, and I'm guilty of it. But there's never a day that I'm not in love with my wife. There's never a day that I don't want it just to be words I say. And we had went to a marriage. We used to have them all the time at our church, marriage thing. We retreats, dinners, all kind of things, and they have games, everything. But this one question I was very ignorant of. They asked, "What do you do that's just for your spouse?" And man, I set it up. Man, I says, man, I get the silk pajamas out. I get this out. I get the music, and they shot me down and said, "No. What do you do specific for why?" I didn't know what they were talking about. I kept saying the same thing over again. It took me 2 years later for it to hit me in the back of my head that was all for me. That wasn't for her. So what I usually do, and I haven't been able to do it a lot because my back hurts, I committed to washing her car, whether it's winter, summer, once a week. That's beautiful. It was just for her. But it was more beautiful because it came sacrificial just yesterday. We had some things, and I have to bless my nephew and give him a shout out on this. I had heart failure over the Christmas, and I had this back issue, and I was trying to paint my basement, and my nephew came over just to entertain. My nephew came over, and he took care of it for me. Didn't ask for nothing or anything. I almost teared up on that. He's always been that kind of, to me, he's, in my heart, he's more like a son. And I treat him like that. That's my love for him. But he did that, and I put a lot of the junk from the basement in the garage so a car could go in the garage. You kept asking me, and Black Beauty ain't used to being out in the weather. She ain't used to going outside to get in her car with snow all over. That's right. So yesterday, even I put on a back brace, clean out the garage, and washed her car. And then when she was going somewhere, I says, "Your car is in the garage." I didn't tell her I cleaned the car either. She just looked and she called me back and said, "Thank you, man. My car is clean on the inside and outside." But what I'm saying, we have to respond to one another. We have to be interested in one another. We have to pursue each other like God pursues us, man. You really don't know each other completely because there's things hurts. Just say you married somebody that was molested. That doesn't mean that they're going to tell you everything up front. It might be 10, 15 years before they feel comfortable enough to say something to you. But guess what? We respond out of our pain. And we respond sometimes out of how we were brought up to our mate. And those are the things that we have to deal with and kill and start new traditions and just be open, just be communicated and listen.
Well, all that is good. I'll tell you that. So I got a question. I'm always the one that asks the spicy questions.
That's all right.
We living in a day and age where marriage ain't the most popular thing anymore. Divorce rates is through the roof. From you guys' point of view, from your point of view, what is this new generation lacking? Like, why is marriage not the most popular thing? You see a lot of people now. It's just we do what we do and it makes sense. But we had an episode, like I said, where marriage these days can be looked at as a joke these days. And there's not too many people now that can make it past 5-6 years. I said, from you guys' vantage point, what would you say some of the issues with this new generation?
That's a loaded question.
from what just some of the situations you see.
I think
you
it's
said respect, and I know you said suffrage. A lot of it, because even with you asking that question, my question was it's like, well, you answer his question, but just from what you said, when do you start gaining that respect? And there's a such thing as healthy suffrage too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
That's
those
pretty
are the
good.
2 points that you guys actually said that we in this generation lack. So
I think that's two different.
it's 2 different things.
It's two different issues, and let me respond to his first, and then yours. Oh, did I cut her off?
I was saying let her finish.
Oh no,
Oh,
I'm good.
okay.
No, I was just saying
I
that.
thought you was
I know those are
done
the 2
too.
things that you
But
guys
but
said.
but
so.
I'm gonna respond to both of them, and I might not even be liked on this podcast for
It's
what
okay.
I'm getting ready to say.
I'm typically not liked either.
I think it's the church. It's not the current culture. It's the church. And what we fail to do is have a conversation. We are doing church, but not being the church. I heard Jackie McCullough preach this word. Church used to be a place where you used to come and they used to be after liability. And what I mean by liability, people came in, they were drunks, they sold crack, they did all kind of things, and all of a sudden they become the deacon of the church, they become the preacher, they become all this, but they would go after liability. It was just the same thing of Jesus going to the man in Jerusalem at the place called Beautiful. The only reason why he was there for a need. And I think the church don't want to have the conversations that they need to have. Just say that there was a young girl that came into the church and she was butch. She was a stud. They don't want to have the conversations with her, so they tell her, you need to dress like this. You need to do this.
I'm sorry.
Not
What you mean, like gay?
gay, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, they call them stud, Shit, I'm talking about the stud part. I ain't talking about the one that I could
Like a bull dagger.
look right, more or less.
Oh, okay.
You knew that one, but you didn't know
But stud is how they want to be responded to. Cause, but what I'm saying,
I was a little confused
She done dressed
a little manly.
like this for 26 years, and you isolate her dress instead of understanding that Jesus gonna change all of that once she's inside of her. And so what happens with marriage and things like that, the church does not have those conversations. There should be a time you coming for counseling, you should talk about everything. You should even talk about, hey, how many times we gonna have sex?
Correct. That's a good
Or whatever. And the church doesn't have conversations about real life. And then those that do are false teachers. They talking about we gonna buy fields to sell weed or some crazy stuff. No, you can move with the times. You can stay relevant, but it never separates from the gospel. It never separates what is life changing. And so when you gotta offer everything, a program or something like this, the church is always asking for assets instead of saying, "Let me serve you." And so that's my opinion why people have problem. When we were younger, they talked about righteousness. Now they talk about feel good. Even T.D. Jakes and all of them. Everybody, Osteen, they all rubbing you. And what helped me was conviction. I needed to be conviction. I need to be conviction that just because I was a male, I could be a hoe too. And I needed the conviction of somebody saying, hey, man, I ain't going to let you go out like a sucker. You a hoe. You smoke more reefer than a little bit. You ain't getting high because God is not, he does not commit himself to what is not his. He doesn't bring trouble in me and my wife's life, but he'll be there with us because he's sovereign and he's providential. And God doesn't have to give me any answers, but I know he's good. And so that's what I'm saying, what has changed. We keep blaming society. It's like the Republicans now. They're blaming abortion and things like that. You can't legislate righteousness. I don't care how many laws you get for transvestites and gay and abortion. You cannot legislate righteousness. It is a choice. Love is a choice. And I just believe that's what we do. And I don't believe there's anything wrong. I believe our kids are turning around because it's not illegitimate kids, it's illegitimate parents. And so they cussing people out, cussing teachers out. Will you tolerate that?
Yeah.
I'm from old school where I got corporal punishment. My dad was a butt whooper. You know, I ain't saying it needs that because I didn't need that with my son. And I have a whole different opinion of how God operates with me. It's the same way parents operate with their kids. It is not punishment. It's correction. I'm bringing correction to your life. So that's why I think that young people are getting a bad rap. It's just like black men are getting a bad rap. Yeah, because of all the things that's said about us, and nothing is said about the good fathers, the great fathers, the awesome fathers, then you might would think that there's no such thing as a black man that's a great father. And I've seen them. So again, I think our response is just that the more a person sees it, the more they're able to operate in it. But you cannot operate in something that you don't know or you don't know how to do.
No, I do agree that healthy marriages, we had this conversation before, healthy marriages is definitely not shown. Like you said, you know, good fathers is definitely not a popular thing that's shown on TV. I do think, like I said, good marriages can, I don't even know where I'm going here, but.
No, you're on track.
No, but it's just not something that's shown that much, like you were saying.
And if I never saw it, then maybe the mandate is for me to be that witness.
Yeah, I agree.
So even in speaking in that, so what did, growing up, right, you guys both came from households in which your parents were married. What did you take, or did you take what you seen growing up in marriage? Did you take any of that into your marriage? And if you did, what was the outcome? Or was the outcome good or bad?
Some of it I would say yes, I did take. You know, I'm a PK, so my dad was a pastor, preacher. You know, so prayer and, you know, just being introduced to spirituality, of course, that's something that I gleaned and took into my marriage. But there were other things that you don't always learn from your parents. And so in the time frame of which I grew up, you know, you didn't really talk about balancing a checkbook or, you know, financial things that, you know, you really, you need that, you know, arguing, you know, you may have been exposed to abuse, and, you know, because of how you were raised or what you experienced in your household, you might have thought that's something that, you know, maybe worked. You know, in it's ridiculous to think abuse works, but, you know, or intimidation works, but you definitely might try it thinking, I'm going to try some of this intimidation and see how it works for me. And really, you know, it doesn't, or you want to be this tough person, because that's how I was. I wanted to be this tough person. My dad was tough. My mom wasn't, you know, she was more, you know, my mom is sweet as all get out. She wouldn't hurt a flea, but my dad was a brute, and, you know, my brothers were. So, yeah, I want to be feminine, but I also wanted to be tough. And so I felt like being tough was the way to get what I want, or just to survive. I'm going to use that word, survive, some of the things that you go through in marriage. You know, you kind of use intimidation to be like, I'm not going to take this. I'm not going to take your mess. You know, if you do this, I'm going to do that. And does that work? Absolutely not. But through trying it, you learn it's not even necessary, And I'm just being transparent here because I know my husband is not a person who likes to argue, but I did grow up in a home where, it was a lot of arguing. So I just thought that's how that's how things are accomplished. And arguing is something that happens, but there is healthy arguments, healthy communication, or heated fellowship that is productive. And then there's harsh words that can be spoken that can change the whole trajectory of your marriage. So over time, you learn this is not working. My husband wants a woman who is soft and when I say soft, soft spoken, not so verbal, where everything is an argument. So, you learn that over time, it just does not work. If you want to continue to argue, it's exhausting. And again, the harsh words become name calling. It becomes throwing a 5-pound bag of sugar at somebody, or, it just turns into something that is not productive. And it definitely is not indicative of, wanting to hurt the person you love. And so you definitely, a lot of dysfunction in homes, it does follow you in your marriage. And if you don't get counsel, or for yourself, because sometimes it's just personal, counseling on a personal level to deal with maybe anger issues or some sort of trauma that happened in your childhood that maybe you need to deal with, and if you don't, it does follow you into your marriage, and it could be a source of contention and just a sore spot that will continue to grow over time if it's not dealt with. So, again, prayer and just being a spiritual being, and the Word of God is what, for me, is just the foundation.
That's good. So, another good question. So, in the day and age we live in, it's a word that goes around the internet that I don't think that people don't. I think a lot of people don't really understand. And the word is like submission. And even when I went to we had marriage counseling, and they had brought up the scripture talking about submission. My wife said, "No, I don't like the word submission. I don't, I ain't doing that. I ain't doing this." And the word is, I think that the word is misconstrued and that I think that it's not. How do I want to say it? I think it's thrown around, and I don't think that people have a good relationship with the word. So the question that I'm bringing is, you guys are going on 27 years. How does that look for you guys from both standpoints? How would you define that? How, from a female's perspective, and for the wife and the husband, how is that?
For me, it's respect. I wouldn't, he alluded to say obey earlier, which I totally understand, but I just feel like it's a respect because you're respecting the head of the home, you're respecting your covering, you're respecting the vision or just the overall, just for an example, when I got married, I was used to living alone. I lived alone. I left home at an early age, and I was very independent. So it was hard for me to adjust to someone that I had to be accountable to. You know, I worked out of town, so sometimes I would leave my job and I would stop by my parents' house, or, you know, maybe stop by my sister's house, and then I would come home. But I would never call him and say, you know, honey, I stopped by my mom's, or, you know, and it just never registered to me why that was necessary. But anything could happen. I could have gotten into a car accident. You know, it's late. It's getting dark. You know, so is he my father? No, but he is my covering. He is the protector. He is, it's like he took off, you know, he picked up where my father left off. So now he's responsible, you know, for me. So the respect in me is going to call him. The respect is going to let him know where I am and what time I should be home, you know, and it's not out of obedience, but it's out of respect. It's out of respect for his position and the authority he has in my life. So I would say respect.
That's the sanitized version. and the reason why I say
I
it,
think a lot of people need to hear that sanitized version.
It was growth.
Absolutely.
And so it was a process for her to understand the reason behind it. But why I'm saying that is because I was no different. Now people don't want to see themselves in that, but I had a reason why I said, man, why don't you call whatever? She alluded to it. And so that means that she's paraphrasing something I've already said. And so that's a source of communication too, when you paraphrase so you get a good understanding of it, what the other person has said. And that's what my wife just did. But the sanitized version, that it was a process, because we are like this to each other. We are like, who you talking to? Mm-hmm. Or we're like, in reality, we are like, I ain't got to listen to nobody. I say what I want, or I do what I want because I'm grown. And so that's more inside of us than when we get married, than the sanitized version of how we got the results. And that's what I'm saying about men. We're more so like my wife will look at all the, because nonverbals do speak. But sometimes you don't see that you got what you asked for.
Yeah.
I give an example. Babe, would you get me a water? I'm already asleep almost, you know. Our water's in our garage. So, babe, I want a water. Of course, I woke up and I had a frown on my face. But she didn't understand she got the results. And that's how men are. We're if you get the results of something, because we're linear, we're like, that was the only thing that was important. You asked for it, you got it. I don't care if I'm frowning, I don't care if I'm growling, I don't care what. But respect that what you asked for, I delivered. And so I think sometimes, again, the reason why I asked her, I said, babe, because I seen it. I mean, you watch TV, you watching a movie. Life doesn't happen that you make it at home. Matter of fact, we don't even thank God enough that we make it at home every day, you know? But somebody gets held up, somebody gets killed, or knowing where you're at will be the solution of your freedom. And so sometimes she didn't see it that way. But the thing is, you are going to have these times. And I think we sanitize it. Well, I've never argued with my husband. There's something wrong with y'all. If you've never had an argument, if you never had a disagreement, and what we've come to understand, my wife plainly defined it, that some arguments were really wasted. Matter of fact, the source of it was sin, because it was all selfishness involved. I wanted you to judge me for my good intentions, but I'm judging you for what you did. And so we don't give that same way. As a matter of fact, most of the time it's projection. Most of the time what you talking about to the other person is something that's happening in you. It really ain't happening in the other person, but you're projecting what your crazy mind is saying. And that's why the Bible says, casting down vain imagination, bringing every thought under subjection. And so what happens in communication, we start foretelling. And what foretelling is, you ain't even said all of what you you wanted, what you did, or whatever, I already know because you're foretelling you was gonna say this, and this is how you always act. And you bring all of these
I pulled that on me yesterday.
words in, and your mate ain't even saying that, but you already know the matter of fact. Even before they came in the room, you practiced what you was gonna say.
Yes.
And it ain't even what they you ever do that? You going home and man, you be driving. You say, man, when I get home, I'm gonna hug my wife. I'm gonna kiss her. I'm gonna rub on her or something.
Yes.
And as soon as you get home, there's an argument. You be like, this ain't happened. Like that did not mind. My mind said that this was go different.
Telling me no.
You know, but I'm just saying, you know, I'm just saying that that's the reality. And if you don't have a time that you sit, or you don't have somebody that, especially men, women do it. Women do self-care. Women will talk with each other. They will. Men will be like,
try to do everything ourselves.
hey man, I don't need no help or I don't need no counseling, man. You weak if you need counseling, man. You, what's wrong with you? You know, you a punk or something? I don't know, man. I stop, put on my big boy pants and whatever, you know, and you do. And matter of fact, some of the greatest counsel that I've ever had was my wife and me not knowing the voice of God that she was speaking. I was in ministry and I was assistant pastor. And my wife had stopped. She was the administrator of the church. And I took over what she was doing, you know. And she had good reason. And matter of fact, I wish I would have followed her sooner. But anyway, I started doing her job, man. And I'm like, good God, man. Making deposits at the bank, writing the stuff out, stamping the envelopes, all kind of. She had a whole regimen. She was trying to tell me how to do it. But you know what came to me? The Lord told me, she might have been Obed-Edom. She might be bringing the ark into the house. And you think the house is blessed because of you, and it might be blessed because of her. And so something that she alluded to earlier about her character before marriage, my wife will be blessed all the days of her life because it's an impossibility for God to go against his word. The Bible says you reap for you sow, what you sow. It doesn't say you reap where you sow. It says you reap what you sow. And my wife has taken care of aunties, nieces, nephews. She is friends. She has never, to her, sacrificially, never not sold into people. And so what that was, it came into her marriage with her. So she had some skills, and that's what we miss, that your mate has skills before they even come, man. My wife's a good communicator. My wife is a good listener. The things that she is learning now is to use her words. That is something that she misses in communication. But as far as any other person, I have met anybody that has more character than my wife, that has more love than my wife, that stands for God even to her pain. But to use your words will help her and me. And the reason why I said, you ever been with somebody and I see the reaction of you think people understand what the heck you talking about, but they don't. I seen many quizzical husbands sitting there going, but they think you should understand what they just said. And you be like,
Lost.
And then that's the source of it. Or it's like, this is what happened with my granddaughter. You know how you have kids that you can't understand what the heck they said, and you say, okay. and I did that, and my granddaughter looked up at me and said, and she started, this much I did understand. Papa, you don't understand what I'm saying. But I was pretending like I did because it worked for every other kid that was in my family. It didn't work on her because I didn't understand what the heck she was saying. You know, you be around them because people be around their kids and they be like, oh, he said this, he said that. he ain't saying English, and you say, oh, he talk well. No, y'all don't understand what that joker's saying, but I don't. And so I've done it to her too, and figured, man, it's so clear. And a lot of stuff wasn't clear, or my whole posture was wrong, or it reminded her of maybe her father and mother's relationship, or I wanted Corn and Betty, that's my mother and father, I wanted that to happen for us. I'm talking to her and understanding that only worked for them. That's the skill set that they had.
Had to learn that early in the game.
I got a question. So, we hear the importance of being together. What about the importance of still being an individual as well while in the relationship? Like spending time, as much as you spend together, obviously you need to spend a lot of time together, but apart as well. And who you spend that time with and the importance of that. Friends, family, whether or if those are your closest friends, if your family is having the right women around, right men around, where you can go and hang, having that time where you can actually say, I'm going with the girls, go mind your business somewhere else, or I'm going with the guys, don't bother me. This is our, like, can you explain the importance in that? Because some relationships, like, you may get in a relationship and the guys, whether it's control, insecurities, or just I want to be up under you, like, you don't need to go over there with them. Tell them to come over here. Or it could be on the opposite end where the wife, girlfriend, whatever the case may be, doesn't want to be without the husband. It's like, nah, you can't go unless I can go. What's the importance in still being an individual while in the relationship as well?
Again, the guy that was at the place called Beautiful, he was impotent. Jesus asked him, do you want to be whole? And so for my wife and for my acceptance is I want her to be whole. And whatever response she has, it's made better when she pursues things without me. Because that's who she is. Now, when I'm alone, I know what defines me with love. If I'm doing something and I'll be like, man, Danielle would love this. Everything for me always reflects back to her. And because we're so different, I'm a homebody, and you know that. When I was younger, it was basketball or something like that. So you're going to have to give me room to be function. But basketball and the cats that I hung out with wouldn't lead me away from home. So there's never been a time in our marriage that I have to stop at the local Grunkadunk to get some liquid courage to go home. I love going home. And for her, I've never questioned, but she respected me and saying, man, I'm going to Chicago with the girls. It's going to be such and such, such and such. And she gives me as much detail as I need. Now, what is problematic on my part back to her is that no matter what my wife wants me to communicate with, the same with going to work. So if I come home, how was work? It was fine. No, she wanted to know some details. You know, what did you do? Did you do some reports? How did it go? Did you have a productive day? So I gotta feed her some stuff. So if I went with the guys, I gotta feed her some itinerary. You know, but on the other part, and it works good for me if I do that, because it's respect, and plus it's her makeup. It's how women communicate and respond to you. But on the other sense, I know who I am. And not only do I know who I am, I know who I'm married to.
Yeah.
I could tell you if I would have stepped on some things because she had male friends, then I would be insulting her, that saying that she couldn't handle herself and that she wasn't the woman of character that I married. And she would go to lunch with them. I could say her name, and she would say it now. He's Pastor Trent. Come over my house when There are only a few people could come over my house that's male that when I ain't home now.
My wife.
Because I might have a problem.
My wife has some best friends. I had to tell her to cut off.
But yeah, what we do. I mean,
Right.
even with family, I'm not being smart or anything, but with her family, I could tell which sibling my wife was with by how she came home. If she came home sweet, she was with your mama. If she came home another way, it was two other different siblings that she started growling at me. I'm like, yeah, wait a minute. I could tell who she was with in the family by how she even came home.
Yeah.
So by the ones you would cut out, you'd be like, you ain't quite yourself when you hang out with her. As a matter of fact, I don't like the way she always talking about people. As a matter of fact, that chick would lead you away from me. I don't think she really liked me in the first place, and I think she's jealous of what we got. Because we ain't got nothing. Now, what I mean, that was a blessing for me to learn that it wasn't, our relationship wasn't the car. It wasn't the house.
Yeah.
It wasn't the ring I put on it. The relationship was bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. And again, I married her for the right reasons. One day I was in the basement and I was in between jobs. And then I haven't really been in between jobs very much. I worked at the hospital for almost 38 years, 40 years almost. So I haven't had a lot of gaps in employment. But I was praying for a job. And you know what the Lord told me in devotion? He was saying, the best thing you ever did was marry your wife. I'm saying, God, I'm telling you I need a job. You know, if a man don't work, he don't eat. And you telling me, intervening in between my prayer, make your requests known. You know, you telling me the best thing, and he was right. The best thing that I ever did was marry my wife. So I look smart every day. And I picked the right one. He that finds a wife finds a good thing in favor with the Lord. The reason why I got favor in my house, because show me a woman that's a nag. The Bible says a contentious woman is like a continual dripping, a drop, man. And so
I need to read up on that one.
So yeah, man, that's how they torture people.
Where is that at?
Proverbs. And so
Thank you. Got to send that to a few brothers I know.
my wife has lifted me up, and that's what listening will do. Listening is supposed to be helpful, bring joy, and bring sometimes remedy. And again, that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, was marrying my wife. I love being a dad, but it's like playing basketball, whatever, football. I don't want anybody in front of me that don't want to beat the hell out of me. It is no fun if you're going to lay down on me. I like beating you to a pulp. And so I don't want to be with any woman that doesn't challenge me. I'm made better by my wife. It might not be my bank account or anything, but wherever it counts, I'm made better by my wife. And even sometimes when what I said was considered just a platitude, my wife still knows my heart, even if she says, you're one of the most selfish men I know. Sometimes I realize that God's working on her too, and that might have hurt my heart. And again, the problem with us is, you hear people say, oh, all I can do is pray. Well, then guess what? You just disconnected right there, because the prayer is the highest level of worship. So the highest level of worship is to communicate with God and not always talk to him and say what you want, but to listen to him. And so if it wasn't for my wife, if it wasn't for my kids, then guess what? All the prayer that I've done wouldn't have brought me closer to God than what it did. The opportunity to pray And my nephew knows me. If you're in the supermarket, you tell me your problem, we're going to pray right now. Wherever it is, I'll call you, I'll text you. It'll almost be to nauseum for you. But for me, I want to see results because I believe God is good. I believe God hears me when I pray, you know. And my wife is more powerful than she ever could imagine, man. My wife, when she prophesies or when she prays, it gets results. And it's always with humility. It is never not without humility. And the highest compliment that's ever been given to me and my wife is, you guys the same people when you in private as you are publicly. Then you really gave me a compliment that we ain't wishy-washy folk. We the same people no matter what. And so I couldn't be as hospitable as I am without my wife. She makes me hospitable.
Amen.
So, your question about being separate and together, I think that that's a good point, only because you are still individuals. So, you're a married couple, but you could your wife could be an entrepreneur, or you could be a public speaker, and you have to travel. So your gifts and talents, I believe, will make room for you. And I feel that in marriage, you have to support each other. And the key is to communicate. And for both the husband and wife, is to never leave room for question. So if you're going out with the guys, or if you're having a ladies' night or whatever, you know, you just don't leave room for question. And I don't feel like that's something that you would do on a regular basis. I feel like it should be reserved for, you know, and it has nothing to do with being insecure. I don't feel. I mean, I'm sure that there are women who are insecure, but as a man, you shouldn't feed into that either. So it's just important to always communicate and just go the extra to make sure things are being done in a manner in which your spouse is not feeling a certain type of way about your friends. You know, you don't put your friends in front of your spouse. You know, your wife comes first, or your husband comes first. So for as much as I travel or do things outside of my husband, if he didn't feel comfortable about it, I don't do it. Or if I say to him, you know, this is what the plan is, if he's not comfortable with it, then I don't. And I could feel like I really want to go, but
I think that what she said was something added to the question. We thought in regards to influence. We thought in regards to what I was doing, could somebody possibly influence me in a negative way? But what my wife just said, and brought a little bit more qualifying to it, was balance. Because you could be a business person, and business became more of your heart than your wife. And so you might be out of balance, that your interests became something that I'm going to exclude you in instead of including you. And whether you come with me or not, but you're not included, and it's more important that I do this than what if I ask you not to miss something once or whatever. I think what my wife was saying was important, and sometimes I used to be gung ho in ministry. And I didn't have the balance of saying no, or even to my children. My children are still part of our marriage, so they're individuals. But guess what? Early in my Christian walk, when I was telling you about the church, I had pastors that didn't mind me going everywhere they needed to have a occasion or an affair or whatever. And guess what happened? I was cheating my kids because guess what? That football game I might not ever get again. But they're going to be another conference. They're going to be another Bible study. They're going to be another one of them. And you making demands on me to even question that, well, how loyal are you? How good of a minister are you? Then you're out of balance. Because some of the stuff that I have to say no to you or hanging out with the guys or whatever, I was out of balance because guess what? My children and my wife was more important. That now you know when your wife needs you. You really do, and all the needs ain't money. It ain't something. It is. I need you to fuss over me, or it is because sometimes I give you an example. I'm ready to go to sleep. And my wife sometimes won't talk, and I'll be like, But the balance is that. She don't always talk, so man, you better sit up and pay attention to what she's talking about, or that counsel, man, allows you to be okay with the freedom of trust. I trust you. I know who you are, and we just miss opportunity, and that's opportunity when my wife goes to Chicago and comes back. Yeah, man, I had tasted Chicago. We went to Houston's or we went to Garrett's Popcorn and we had this and that and the other. Or I stopped at Starbucks and got some sugar plum.
The Danish.
We didn't talk about them sugar plums about 3 episodes.
Yeah, I was just saying. I threw that in. My nephew.
They good. So listen, I got a question for y'all that I love asking people. Now the crew didn't answer these questions, and I asked, I think just about any guest that come on, I asked this question too. We got to get Wayne, but both of you guys individually, for you, your mother to your children, your supervisor, manager over your employees, you are a daughter to your mother, you're a caregiver to those you love. Who are you for you? Mm-hmm. The same thing for you. You're a husband to your wife, father to your children, you're a pastor to the sheep. Like, who are you for you?
That's a good question.
I might answer it in a different way about who. Who I am is my why. Who I am is why I get up every morning. It was more important when I was a young father and husband. Had my wife's picture in my locker and my kid's picture in my locker. And every day, even when I went to a job I didn't like, my why spoke to me. And so that was who I was. And who I am is always changing. And I found that out when our son went to the military. He was one of the first troops into Baghdad. Me and my wife didn't talk for 2 weeks. And it wasn't because we didn't converse. The fact of the matter was most of our conversation was about that boy. Did he have to go to work today? Did he wash his clothes? Does he have senior tea this week? Most of our conversation was about him. And so I had to change again and transition to a whole different set of I was this cat for 20 years or 18 years. I was dead. In fact, y'all probably experienced that. They don't even call you by your name. Oh, that's Morgan's father. Like, I was here before him, man. I got a name. I even paid for the Y membership, and all y'all know me as is Nefea's father. Mm-hmm. So I have to equate that to that's my my why, man. My wife started buying me stuff, man. And I didn't figure it out for a minute. I said, man, why is she buying me this shirt? That was all the stuff she was buying my son. Buying him a shirt and stuff. So she kept it over, but she turned it over to me, you know. And so my family's always been my why, and that's who I am. And I don't think I ever want to change that. But I realize transition is a necessary thing. And to add to my skill levels is what marriage does to me. Marriage challenges me to do that. It challenges me to think of the hard things. It challenged me when she came to me and said, "Hey, man, what you gonna do about this? You out of work?" And I didn't realize that she had the right. That's what when God showed me I had the growth. I would have argued that man, it was my fault. This is just circumstances. But no, there's certain things a woman has a right to ask you. There's certain conversations you need to have even before you got married, man. Amen. What do you think about having kids? What do you think about, are you a cheater? What do you think about open marriage? What do you think about a threesome? What do you think about women working? What do you think about this? What do you think about if I got sick and I couldn't work? Or what do you think about if I got sick and couldn't have sex? What do you think? I mean, those things lead to who you are. Yeah. Either you're a man of character or you're not. And that's what I'm saying. We cool with people married to us that compartmentalize their life. I'm good over here. Don't touch this over here. Yeah. Don't ask me nothing about it either, because I ain't answering. Who you think you is? I'm grown. Yeah. You cannot compartmentalize your life being married with your wife or your children. Now, you ain't got to take no stuff off your children. They ask you a few questions. Dad, did you used to do this? Say, okay, nice light, but that's as far as we go, because any more information than that, man, might make you lose respect. But I answered it only the way I can answer for me, man. I like being Daniel's husband because she's my why. It's like a man that has a business, man. If he like what he doing and it's his passion, it ain't even work. That's his why. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't know. I'm in a season right now that I am trying to really tap into that question that you asked, mm-hmm. because I have spent a number of years really, I would say, neglecting Danielle. Mm-hmm. So I just feel like in this season, that is my pursuit. If I can say that.
You asked us this question. I'm throwing it back on you. So do you think when you don't know who you are, is there a certain level of resentment that bubbles up and boils over, and you think it's hidden, but everybody around you saying, boy, you making my life miserable because you don't know who you are?
I believe so.
I don't want that one word answer, man. No, that's surface stuff. You said you guys ask the hard stuff and answer it too.
Well, if you check out episode 45, I got a psych. No, I'm just kidding. I believe that if you don't know yourself, if you don't know your value, I think that you put yourself in a situation that another person will have to place what they think your value is on you, and typically is lower than who you are. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's very important to know who you are going into a relationship. Now, granted, who you are will change throughout the years, but I think to have a base and a foundational understanding of who you are going in, so you can't let that person tell you who I think you should be or what I want you to be, or know who you are, know your value, know what you bring to the table, bring something to the table other than the appetite. And thinking of word. So to answer your question, yes, I think that you should have some type of basic foundational knowledge of who you are, where you want to go, what direction you want your life to go, and how did this person help you move in that direction.
So the other part of that question, I'm still waiting on an answer. Has somebody been a victim
Oh yes.
of your resentment because you didn't know who you are? I know we all can sit here and say some ex-girlfriend or some friend that y'all don't talk no more or something.
I could tell you this: my wife has had to deal with me knowing who I want to be. I don't think she ever had to deal with me not knowing. I think that she had to go through where I want to go, because I like things that we're dealing with now is that yes, I am the business person, and sometimes, like you just said, I will put that above my wife. Or there's a season of when you're a business person, you don't have a consistent flow of income. So that we could be up and we could be down just as fast as we was up. So I would say that I have a good wife that understands that, and she sacrificed because I do know who I am and know where I want to go. I wouldn't say that she dealt with me not knowing who I am, but I definitely think she sacrificed her because I do know where I want to go.
I think you answered another question you answered earlier because you are a young person about what do you think about why they're struggling this generation or whatever, whether it's millennials or Generation X. You just answered. A lot of people get married, and it's the worstest ring. Oh, I want to keep you, so I'm gonna put a ring on it.
Yeah.
Or
The worst decision in the world.
I might not be good for you, and you need to get away from me. But the reason why I asked you to marry me, or even I started coming to church, I didn't want to get saved or anything. I just wanted you not to move out the house or whatever. So I think you just answered something that would be more important to this generation is to know who they are
Absolutely.
before they got married, because they're going to do some harm, some real damage to somebody. Could you imagine somebody, I want to be a dope dealer, and you need a husband,
Yeah.
and but I want to be a dope dealer, and then maybe what you communicating is that's who I am.
I see a lot of times more, and this might just be from what I'm saying, I don't want to generalize it, but I see a lot of women going into a relationship and their value is placed on being a mother or being a wife, and they don't know who they are. So you kind of mold into just I'm a mother or I'm this part, and you don't know who you are. You don't really know what you want, and then it's like now you living your life for your husband or for your kids. And back to what DeAndre was saying, like we don't know who we are to ourselves. We know who we are to our kids, to our wife, to our husbands, but a lot of times we don't know who we are and what we bring to ourselves to keep ourselves happy. And I see a lot of people that's miserable married. And that's why I do. It's a joke, but I do like to say I'm happily married. It's like yourself. I found a good wife that believes in me, that supports me, and is willing to fight with me. Like you just said, you want somebody that's willing to challenge you, and I found somebody like that, and that's why I always say I'm happily married, and I want to do my best to keep it that way.
Same here.
Yes, sir.
I haven't heard you. What do you think about that resentment, or have you experienced that, or been made miserable by somebody that didn't know who they was, or that you shared the same equal opportunity?
Well, I would say it wasn't the resentment of not knowing who I was. They dealt with the resentment of me kind of shaping for them. So I got married very young. It wasn't that I didn't know who I was. It was just a simple fact that I just wanted to be his everything. So that helped me, that servitude and everything, and probably same reason why you just sat there and you said, in this season of our life, I'm trying to figure that part of it out. It's because we become so engulfed in our husbands. I remember sitting down. I wasn't even married. We were dating, and he said, "What do you think I am?" And so I said, "What?" He said, "What do you think I am?" And so I naturally just like, "You're a musician. That's exactly what you are. That's what you've always been to me, you know." And then everything that I did from that moment, it fed into him being that musician, you know. And once, I'm talking like from buying music equipment to taking a sacrifice because you need to go to a gig, stand up late at night because you wanted to go to a shed, dealing with it, you know, you going to church to these different events, even though I'm at home, I'll take care of little man, whatever it is. So it wasn't necessarily a resentment of, like I said, me not knowing who I was. It was just a resentment that I was really trying to be everything that he needed, and I got ignored.
Is this not the podcast?
This is not the podcast.
Then I'm going to ask you something.
All right, throw it at
Because
me.
everything you said was resentment.
Yeah.
If it was me, respectively, like looking back, I would have been pissed to the highest passivity. I would have been like, wait a minute. I was nowhere around in there. Me was almost invisible. And that's some of the things we're discussing about being married, because guess what? When my wife was saying that, if we're truly going to be the best people we can be, my mind has always been like that, even from a kid. Everything's an argument. But it's the way you argue about it. Higher education is an argument. Does this exist? Is the world flat? Will this chair hold me up? Everything is an argument. Will I be a good husband? And so whatever presents you, then you're having a problem with when what you just said. That is the worstest crime ever. To be in a marriage and be made invisible.
It's even worse when you're made invisible, and then once you decide to take a stand for yourself, because that's when the real argument comes, when you know you've been this certain person this entire time, and this is a person that you've gotten used to, you know, he's gotten used to, and then you know you wake up one day and it's like, hey, babe, I made you some eggs, and you sitting there like, bro, I don't even like eggs. I don't know what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Or when I actually take a stand for myself and I'm saying, listen, I know you used to me succumbing to what you say, but I need you to know that I'm actually quite smart. I'm real smart, and I'm pretty sure that I can figure this out. I actually don't need you to do this right now. So I think a lot of the the friction came from when I literally start saying, you know what? I've been feeding you a whole lot, and now I'm hungry, and I'm done. So now me, I understand it. It's my fault that I allowed myself to go into the shadows because you kept stepping on my toe, and I didn't say anything. But now I'm saying ow. And I need you to be able to hear me say ow. And this is the reason why it hurts. And don't get upset when I go get my steel-toed boot so you hurt your foot. I got to be able to protect me. And it seems like it's like, but then you gonna have to, now you want to hurt me. It's like, no, but I just have to do something to protect me because you're shaping way too much of me, and then I'm losing myself. So a lot of friction came when I decided to stand up for me.
See, what I'm saying to you is, first of all, we changed the narrative. And what I was talking about, pain, I heard Tony Evans talk about this, because it's going to be a constant thing in marriage. What you just said, changing the narrative, changing the story. And from what I heard was just growth. And if you define it without the spiritual aspect of it, then you don't realize that a root of bitterness came in. Hebrews talks about a root of bitterness, because it's hard to hold people in the same place, a negative and a positive. It's hard to say, I'm all in, I love you, you my ace coon boon, and over here you saying, man, you dirty dog, you and whatever. This is how you made me feel. When we always do that, and I'm just saying, I've had arguments with my wife that caused me to grow, and it was a choice. Love is a choice. I'm not saying that you can make anything, because when you become one and two people ain't gonna go there with, with the change, then that's gonna happen. But what I'm saying is that maybe the practice you just mentioned, because you ain't never been married before, is growth. And Tony Evans said this. Guy went to a doctor. Told the doctor, he says, man, I ache all over. I ache all over. So he said, put your finger on your arm. He put his finger on his arm and ow. Put his finger on his leg. Ow. He put his finger on his head. Ow. And he said, fool, it ain't your body. You have a dislocated finger. And so that's what happens in marriage, man. We make some places where there's room to grow out of that. But we think it's the whole marriage or this whole thing. And because we'll get a root of bitterness in there, everything is bitter. And so the devil has power. The devil gets in our mind. The devil, a spirit, comes, man. And then there's what I call, sometimes when me and my wife is at it, I realize James 5 talks about the spirit of strife. I realized, man, strife done came in my house. We argue about everything now. We barely walk by each other and kiss each other. And so I'm just saying, I realized that a fire go out without logs, man. And I've been throwing as many logs on the fire as she has. And so I have to resist. You know how the Bible says, resist the devil and he flee from you. I have to resist my emotions. I have to resist thoughts that's unproductive. I have to resist, oh, she don't love me because she ain't. No, she human, and she responding to how crazy I am. Or I really just more with growth. I really his question. I realize I have to define myself. What I think of me. And then after what I think of me, there was more and more important in me. I have to realize what God thinks of me. Because during this recent time in our marriage, what I was going through, I became self-conscious instead of God-conscious. So everything was about me. But I think you're growing more than you give yourself credit for.
Oh no, see, yeah, that's 3-4 years ago.
3-4 years ago, it becomes foundational for your next transition.
Well, right now I understand. I've had time to stand on my own stuff, like he said, be able to build that foundation. So now I'm not at liberty to be who you say that I am, and that's the part that I messed up. I will say personally, and now I don't even allow guys to ask the question and say, well, how do you want your husband or something to be? It's something like that's a question kind of like that, and I immediately shut that question down because I don't need you to conform for me. Just show me who you are. We're good. I'll figure it out. I know what I want, and if you know, you'll know what I want too. You'll know what I need also, because I'm gonna say, oh yeah, that's not it. Nah, I'm sorry, I can't do it.
I mean, me and my wife, we were dating. I came into where she was working at, and this chick kind of hit on me. She said, "It is the biggest revelation for relationship I've ever had." She said, "Are you taking applications?" And I told her the job was already filled. But after that, I took it as a revelation. And this is what I didn't see that as a problem of a question. Because we all come into relationships with expectations, whether they're good or bad. But I made out an application for my wife and gave it to her. And she made out one from me. But that was the greatest revelation that I ever heard. You want to know why? I'm waiting till you ask me why.
I thought you were just gonna lay it on us.
I just wanted you to ask.
I was waiting.
Well, there you go. See, you caught me. Me and you, B.
You got us salivating over here waiting.
The reason why is that before you get married, it is about you. Yeah. After you get married, it's about the other person. So what had happened, if you need romance, and that's on your application. It is. If you need somebody that makes you laugh, humorous, that's on the application. If you need whatever the need is, then when you give that application to somebody, all those boxes are checked. But guess what? If none of those boxes are checked, then you do another person a favor and say, this job ain't for you. Because they can move on to something else, but you done did him a favor, but you also did yourself a favor by knowing who, like he said, who you are. Then guess what? That makes it easier for the person you pick up. Because it's all about you. It ain't about the conforming. I don't think anything was wrong with what you were talking about. I think it was just a place of personal growth. And it's like just recently for me, I totally understand sickness because you only understand sickness if you ain't never been sick. You don't even understand it. You can define it, whatever. But you've been sick and you spoke to the mountain and it didn't move. You cast out the spirit of infirmity and it didn't move. Man, I know what sick is like now. And it brought empathy. Because there was some people that I talked about like, man, how did you get like that? Man, I got sick and I says, man, with the pain I had, I said, man, I could easily become a drug addict because I was crying out for the doctor to give me anything to stop this pain. You know what I mean? So people I judged about that they wasn't strong or whatever, I didn't know what the heck I was talking about. But I believe the devil comes in, and what you described was just God. Because God doesn't give you anything bad, but he uses everything for your good. I think you're just a stronger woman for your experience. I think you add something to somebody's life because of that experience. I think you might even see the bull more clear because of that experience.
Miles away.
So but that's just me. That I believe that the narrative needs to be tweaked a little bit in what now to because sometimes facts and truth are not the same thing. It was like the guy with the thing. The facts was he thought all his body was hurting. It was just a finger. The truth was it was his finger. So I think sometimes that's where we have these conversations within ourselves, and we manufacture some insecurities and some things where it was just an experience that was a place of growth. God, I've had a lot of things in my life going, oh man, you're so stupid. Why did you do that? And the devil, vain imagination, the devil will bring back some experience in my life and try to paint me with it. And now I'm just grown.
So look, as we get out of here, I'm about to wrap this up real quick. Give us, I want to thank y'all for being on here, sharing, dropping some gems, sharing the journey of the 27 years that are coming. Give the people some advice that are married, looking to get into marriage, just relationships in general. Give us some advice as we head on up out of here that the people could take with them on their way out.
I would just say communication is key. Just always communicate. Just be honest, transparency. you know, because you start off dating and you send out your representative, but the true person is yet to be revealed. We want to see more of that true person up front, is what I would say. In communication is just really a great foundation to have.
It's not always getting or having the right person as being the right person. And the work of you will be a lifelong adventure. You got to believe that God will send supply, be your supply. You will have crisis of faith. You will have people turn against you, but he'll make sure you get home safely.
The work is worth it.
It's good stuff. Y'all got anything?
It gave us more than we needed. I'll tell you that. I gotta watch this episode again.
That's what's up. As y'all enjoy y'all Valentine's Day month, week, day, take this into account. And before you jump into a relationship, evaluate yourself. Learn yourself. Fall in love with yourself so that it makes it easier for someone else to learn you and fall in love with you as well. Until next time, play the moments, positive memories, stop the pain, keep the happiness on repeat. Peace.
Peace.
What's up?
BVU fam, we just wanted to take the time to thank you once again for tuning in to another episode of Blended Views Unfiltered.
Because you know we love y'all.
And we miss y'all too.
Thank you for your support.
And we want you to take time out of your busy day and go check out our TikTok, our Instagram, and our Facebook. And for those of you who are not listening or watching on YouTube, go to our YouTube channel and subscribe.
And we also got, listener letters. So if you guys ever have a question that you want us to address, if you ever just want to write in and say, you know what, Nick, your hair is always on point, or Big Mama is so funny, or Special K is so crazy, or that Dre always getting at the women.
Who's Special K?
Special K is crazy. But you can write us at info@blendedviewsunfiltered.com. That is info@blendedviewsunfiltered.com.
And always remember,
Play the moments.
Positive memories.
Stop the page.
and keep the happiness on repeat. Peace.
Peace out.
Peace.